China's tanking economy is dragging down foreign businesses like a 2-ton anchor made of concreted stupid. Who could have possibly known doing business with frickin' communists was a bad idea? Other than, everyone who watches this channel. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. What happens when China's economy slumps under the incompetent and corrupt rule of the Chinese Communist Party? Well, everybody who does business with China is going to get dragged down with it, and that spells trouble for the whole world. China's real estate crisis is exposing just how horrible China's economy is. It also shows just how vulnerable foreign businesses are. I reported earlier how Country Garden, China's largest real estate developer, barely dodged defaulting recently. Well, it isn't over. Country Garden is again facing a payment deadline after twice dodging default. The looming shadow of defaulting still hasn't gone away, and it likely won't, since all Country Garden is doing is kicking the can down the road. At this point, I wouldn't trust Country Garden to manage an Olive Garden. When you're here, your family's gonna wind up homeless. If it defaults, Country Garden will hit even harder than Evergrande did, which in turn could potentially spell disaster for China's economy and also everyone else's. Why everyone else's? Well, let's look at an example. Country Garden's most valuable offshore project, Forest City, is a $100 billion luxury complex that's sitting empty and unfinished in Malaysia. 7 years into the project, Country Garden has only spent $4.3 out of the $100 billion and completed 15% of it.
This is Forest City, a mega development in southern Malaysia built by the troubled Chinese real estate firm Country Garden. The plan was to build housing for some 700,000 people with luxury facilities throughout.
There's a water park, a garden maze, a beach that no one can swim in, and a commercial street, which will eventually be something like a shopping mall. But hardly anyone is using them. Only about 9,000 people live here, and most of the units that you see behind me are actually still empty.
I haven't seen something so hyped up flop this hard since the Flash movie. And even though that took forever to come out, at least they actually finished it. You see, Forest City is close to Singapore, a major economic hub. So it was sold as a safe bet for the future, a place where China's wealthy could buy a vacation home and investors could park their money that would inevitably take off. Only it never took off. And now Country Garden's debt problems are making Malaysians fear that they'll have to keep Forest City afloat with tax dollars. Talk about taxpayer dollars going down the drain. Hopefully Country Garden isn't also responsible for installing drains, because then I don't even know where that money is going down. Malaysia's not the only country worried about China's real estate bubble, though. Country Garden's financial woes are also casting a shadow over the Australian property market. And it's not alone. Over the past summer, Chinese property developers have been fleeing Australia in droves. Those droves include Greenland, Polycor, Yuhu, Dalian Wanda, and Country Garden subsidiary Risland Australia. These corporations already disrupted Australia's real estate market by paying above market rates for tons of assets. Exiting now disrupts things even more by holding up development, which in turn impacts the number of new homes coming onto the market, and Australians are the ones who get screwed. So for anyone thinking these global housing crises are caused solely by greed, you're wrong. It's greed and incompetence. Now, who's ready to invest? Delays on development are the last thing Australia needs right now with its ongoing housing shortage. But China's real estate crisis is affecting Australia in other ways as well. Look no further than Australia's iron ore exports. China's economy is heavily dependent on just building stuff and getting into debt doing so. This has never been sustainable in the long run. And they've been doing this for the long run. I'd say China's chickens have come home to roost, but with their current housing crisis, I'm not even sure the chickens have homes to roost in. Now that Chinese construction has taken a major hit, raw material suppliers are feeling the heat as well, and that can impact entire currencies. It's not just Australia. Mineral exporting countries such as Australia, Peru, Chile, and Brazil are expected to see their respective currencies and trade balance weaken amid the secular demand downturn in China. Things aren't much better for the US. I'll tell you how in a moment, but first, when it comes to China news, you want to make sure you're getting all the news from multiple perspectives. For example, if you read state-run China Daily, they'll tell you that the property sector is showing signs of recovery. It might be obvious when Chinese state-run media is giving you a biased perspective, but it's not always so obvious with Western media, which is why I use ground news to see how topics are being covered by sources around the world, sources that may have conflicting motives. Let's take this story, for example. Chinese police detain wealth management staff at the heavily indebted developer Evergrande. There are 44 sources reporting on this from all across the political spectrum. If you scroll down, you can read every article, and next to each media outlet, you can see who owns that company, whether it's highly factual, and whether they lean left, right, or center. Perhaps unsurprisingly, China Daily is not reporting on this. But South China Morning Post highlights the company's failure to pay investors, while other news outlets focus on the hit to the company's share price. Ground News also has an app with a really cool map feature that allows you to focus in on specific regions to see the biggest stories internationally. With 50,000 sources, Ground News is by far the most comprehensive way to stay on top of geopolitical issues and make sure you're getting the full picture. Ground News is on a mission to hold the media accountable and provide context so we can see how media narratives can easily shape public opinion. It's a great place to go if you want to be more informed than the average newsreader and find multiple perspectives that you might otherwise have missed. And it's also just really interesting to see all the hidden biases in the media. And that's why we're working with Ground News to sponsor this video. So sign up at ground.news/China Uncensored or subscribe through my link now and get 30% off the Vantage level subscription for unlimited access. The link is in the description. Now, as I was saying, American corporations are also heavily dependent on China, in kind of the same way alcoholics are dependent on vodka. Try to take it from them and they say, I don't have a problem, you have a problem. So unsurprisingly, China's worsening economy is hurting corporate America. In the manufacturing industry, companies like Caterpillar and Procter & Gamble have seen drops in Chinese demand. The same goes for chemical companies like Dow DuPont, LyondellBasell Industries, and Parker Hannifin. Decreasing Chinese demand has especially hurt the medical industry. Earlier this summer, biotech companies Thermo Fisher Scientific and Danaher cut their end-of-the-year forecasts because of China. The chief executive officer at Danaher said, frankly, we don't see that getting better here in the second half. China's collapsing economy is especially hurting the companies that are most exposed to it. For example, casino company Las Vegas Sands and semiconductor manufacturer Qualcomm both have well over 60% exposure to China, which is why their stocks dropped drastically recently. This should be a warning to other companies, and some are listening. Large hedge funds cut their exposure to Chinese companies in the second quarter of 2023, according to recent Securities and Exchange Commission filings. The ripple effect of China's disastrous economy knows no end. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. And no, I don't mean the thought experiment, I mean the Butterfly Effect 2, the sequel to that Ashton Kutcher movie. Because like investing in China, who thought this was a good idea? It's affecting business even in other regions like Europe. The CEO of Microchip Technology noted early signs of impending slowdown in Europe, exacerbated by some of our European customers being dependent on exports to countries like China. But even if China's economy improves, it's still not a good idea to do business with China. Given that China's an authoritarian state that puts politics over economics, foreign businesses there run the risk of facing arbitrary crackdowns. Apple, for example, faced chaos last year thanks to China's strict COVID lockdowns. Even after China ended zero COVID and said it welcomed foreign business, U.S. companies have been struggling with raids, slow deal approvals, and anti-espionage laws. It's gotten to the point that U.S. firms admit that China's uninvestable, which is probably for the best. Countries that have large investments in China, such as Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Germany, and the U.S., are going to be in a world of pain the longer they stay attached to China. It's like leaving a hot tub in the wintertime. It'll be unpleasant at first, but it's something you know you're going to have to do eventually, so you may as well get it over with before you become a pruny mess. On top of that, the more they do business with China, the more they help prop up the CCP, all while the CCP screws them over by stealing their tech and trade secrets. Some examples of China screwing over businesses include how an executive at a Baidu-backed EV company allegedly stole Apple's self-driving car tech, and how China has demanded trade secrets from cosmetic companies that want to do business in the country, which China would definitely not copy. There are gazillions of examples of Chinese theft in every industry. They even stole their flag design from the old Soviet Union. Not even the flag industry is safe. And their theft could affect our national security. A recent DuPont-China deal is an example of this. Despite getting approval after fierce debate between the Treasury Department, which was for the deal, and the Defense Department, which was against it, the DuPont deal apparently let one slip. Byproducts from one of DuPont's manufacturing processes could theoretically serve as a high-quality base for fuel used in cutting-edge weapons. And China found out about it. When it comes to China, if it can be weaponized, you better bet that China will weaponize it. After all, China's already weaponizing the entire civilian sector to defeat the US and its allies. I wouldn't be surprised if they're tinkering with taping knives to pandas' heads to weaponize zoos. But as much as the world should avoid doing business with China, the world should also avoid letting China do business with them. There's a good chance that they'll perpetuate corruption. One example of this is how Chinese developers in Australia greased the wheels by paying for escorts for politicians to gain lucrative development deals, and filming them for blackmail. Oh, I'm not recording you to get dirt on you. I'm just FaceTiming with my sister. That escort reminded me of her. Don't tell her I said that. Personally, I'd rather see the CCP fall to its own incompetence and corruption without dragging us into unlimited debt, especially when it's doubtful they could even manage unlimited salad and breadsticks. And as I mentioned, this episode is sponsored by Ground News. It's a great tool to help you stay well informed about what's happening in the world and how it's being covered by all sides of the political spectrum. Check it out at ground.news/China Uncensored or click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.